Since I started my Amazon business, I had just about $3,000 worth of expenses that I could have completely avoided if I did what we're talking about today much earlier. Before I got my reseller permit, I spent $43,000. My average sales tax spent was probably about 7% on all the inventory, but it was actually probably a little higher. That alone means I gave the government an extra $2,835.93, and you've probably missed out on hundreds, if not thousands of dollars of profit so far too, if you haven't done this yet. If you're new to my channel, my name is Anthony, and I live in a van, and right now we're in Austin, Texas, where the skyline behind me is beautiful, but my camera isn't quite nice enough to pick it up. So like this video so I can get to more people, so I can make more money, so I can buy a new camera, and I can get a better picture of that. In this video, I want to talk about how to get a resale certificate, or a seller permit, or a reseller certificate, or a sales tax permit, however you or your state wants to call it. Let's talk about how to get one, how to use it, why you actually probably need one, and the things that you should actually be really careful about when using your reseller certificate so that you don't get in trouble. But first, I have to clear up a common misconception. You see, this video is one that's been widely requested, and I've been talking about making it for a long time. And in the build up to making this video, when I continue to make excuses for why I didn't actually have my reseller permit yet, I commented in this video that I've probably lost about $4,000 to $5,000 worth of profit by not doing this one thing. And actually got some comments on that video saying that, oh, you didn't actually lose out on the profit, you can write that off on your taxes. And even though that's kind of true, you also do lose out on that profit because it's still an expense that you're going to have, and I'd personally rather have more profit than more write-offs. So let's talk about the process of getting the sales tax permit or certificate, whatever you want to call it, and I'll explain the difference in a second. But for some context first, my business is based out of Florida, so I got my reseller permit in Florida. I'm 99.9% sure that you actually need a business to get a reseller permit in almost any state. So if you're just a sole proprietorship getting started, you are still going to have that sales tax expense, but the second you get an LLC, I would get your sales tax permit, not only because it's probably required, but I don't think they enforce that too much, honestly. But you should still do it. And one last thing is, while you might have astutely noticed that we are not in Florida by my super grainy footage of the Austin skyline, that is something we'll talk about in a second as well. All in all, this process only took about 20 minutes to complete, but you will need some business and personal information at the ready, which you'll see here in a second. First thing I did was just simply search up Florida resale permit and click on the annual resale certificate for sales tax Florida department. I'll actually just have that link if you want the Florida one, and it pulls up this page. I scrolled around a little bit to see if there's any important information when you were able to get your reseller certificate. In fact, they expire on the 31st, so you have to get a new one every single year. Then I just went to the home page, went down to register to collect and or pay taxes, and this is where we'll actually find the application. I opened it in a new tab because I wanted to see if there's anything else that was important, and just to make sure that I was actually in the right place. And then I saw that Florida sales and use tax was one of the things that you could register for through this application, so I knew I was in the right spot. And went over to the login page where you're actually going to have to create a new user profile if you're new and you haven't done this before. So we're going to redact all that information, put in a username, email address, password. It made me send an email to myself to confirm the registration. I just clicked through that link and was able to log back in, and now we're into the application. This just tells you what the application is all about. It says it's going to ask you a bunch of questions about your business and the types of things that you'll be selling so that they can identify the correct tax responsibilities. And this is just saying that you can come back to your application if you have to leave in the middle. So you don't have to do it all at once, but it really does not take very long. Like I said, 15 to 20 minutes max. So click start a new application, and the first thing is the reason for applying. I click new registration and then put the date that I registered my business in Florida, and then I have to put in a bunch of information, and a lot of this you'll see me skip through pretty fast just because you don't need to see all this information, and you'll know it for your business. I don't know it for your business. The next page is kind of confusing. It talks about marketplace providers and remote sales, and it asks you if you either are a marketplace provider or if you do remote sales. Initially, I put none of the above activities apply to this business location because I thought that was the right answer, and then I looked at the remote sales and I was like, hey, that kind of looks like Amazon. You're selling stuff, not necessarily where you are. I read it kind of cursorily and changed my answer, and then I changed it back, and then I was like, I'm actually kind of not sure what this means, so I looked it up. And I saw that nobody else actually knew what they were talking about as well. I looked at some YouTube videos, looked at some other things, and I didn't get an answer to this question. And so I was like, hey, none of the above applies to this business location. I don't want to have to worry about it too much. And I did confirm that this is talking about people who reside outside of the state and are going to be shipping things into Florida, and they're simply registering with Florida because they have enough sales that they are required to do so. We'll get to why you probably don't need to do this for Amazon or eBay. Spoiler alert, it's the marketplace facilitator tax. But I'm pretty confident, like 96.8% sure, that none of the above activities apply to this location is correct for me, so I went save and continue. Then it's just a bunch more business information: street address, apartment, all that boring stuff, mailing address as well. And then it gets to something kind of interesting: business activities. This is something that you would have probably needed to worry about as you were getting your EIN, your business tax identification number, and it's the NAICS code. You can just put in the code if you'd like, or you can use the search function to look up what it is for your Amazon storefront or eBay, basically online selling. And I tried to do that initially and realized it was fruitless. And so I just looked it up and found it pretty quickly. Inserted in, it is 4541 110 for Amazon selling. I'm pretty sure. You can double check that if you'd like, but that's the one that I found. And then because I also do YouTube with the same business right now, we haven't been able to subsidiate those businesses yet. I also had to put in the YouTuber NAICS code. I don't think I had to do that, but I did it just in case to be safe. So I put both of those in and went on to the next thing. Next is your business type. We have an LLC, and then how many owners. It's a multi-member, and then we have to put in who the members are. Then when the business was created again, and now it's just going to be a bunch of questions about what your business sells and what it doesn't sell. Tons and tons and tons of questions. Personally, I didn't have to worry about too much of those until we got to this page, which was about purchases. And this is very important, use tax. We'll get to this towards the end of the video when we talk about things to be mindful of when you have your sales tax permit and are using it. It says use tax is due on the use or consumption of taxable goods or services when Florida sales tax was not paid at the time of purchase. And we'll get to what this means later, but it's essentially asking if that's something that you intend to skirt around with your business. And that's why I realized that I was wrong, because I initially had put that my business purchased items to use in my business without paying sales tax. So I would have been violating the use tax statutes. And so I just changed it to none of the above, and we moved on to the next section. This is just more things asking if you sell them or not, and I don't have any of it. And then ask about any employees or contractors that you might have in your business, and I personally didn't have any of those either. More things that you sell, more things that you sell, more things that you sell, so many things that you sell. And then it asks, do you wish to file and pay electronically? And I do, because I don't want to have to deal with any paper. And I think it'd be really hard for me to get it since I am traveling all across the country. And then select the payment type, ACH credit or debit. That just depends on how you actually want to pay for your sales tax, but I don't think that's something that I'm really going to have to worry about, and we'll get to the reasons why here pretty soon. Just further authorizations for email contact, and then signing for everything, and then you just submit your application. This is going to be your confirmation page. You're going to have the application confirmation number, which is that little yellow thing at the top, and then all of your business information will be below it. And it just lets you know that to verify the status of your application, return after 3 days, and you can see where your application is, and if it is approved, they'll send you a copy of it in the mail within 7 to 10 days. That whole screen recording was only like 20 minutes of original footage, and that was with me worrying about making sure that I understood everything correctly to pass on to you guys, and just being my overly cautious self. So I checked back 3 days later, and I just logged back in through the same portal and saw that my application was completed. I clicked on details under view details, and it pulled up a download, which was kind of weird because it says please wait. If this message is not eventually replaced by the proper contents of the document, you might need to get a new PDF displayer. And I've never had a document that was like that, but eventually it did change. At least I'm pretty sure it did. I honestly can't quite remember, but you can also click through tax account numbers, and it'll pull up this page, which shows that our application has been approved, and it gives you your sales and use tax certificate number, which is what the stores will input in their system so that they'll know that it's your sales tax license. And I'm pretty sure this is what pulls up after that PDF page loads, but I will show you a way to access it if that's not the case. But this is your Florida annual resale certificate for sales tax. It expires at the end of the year, and it has my business info at the top as well as the certificate number. It doesn't have your personal name on it, just the business information. So whenever you're out and about, it'd be a good idea to have something linking you to the business. I just keep a credit card to do that, but everything else on it's pretty boring. But that little piece of paper is going to save you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. If you want to access it through another way, all I went was to Google and search print annual resale certificates for Florida. You click through that, you click on print sales tax certificate. This page will pull up. You can enter a user ID and password, but I think it's a different one because I tried to input mine and it didn't work. And so I just put in my certificate and business partner number. The business partner number was part of those tax documents that we clicked through earlier on the first page, and the certificate number is just what was on the certificate. So honestly, a super simple process, but if you're not quite convinced that you should or need to do this yet, here are a couple reasons that you really should get your resale certificate as soon as this video ends, but not before. Okay, so first off, I should probably say this again, you probably are legally required to actually get this in your state. Even though there are so many sellers on eBay and Amazon, all different resellers who don't actually get a reseller permit, you probably were required to do so, so that's definitely not a bad thing to be in compliance with the law. The second thing, and like I said, it bears repeating, but you will literally save thousands of dollars and make thousands of dollars more in profits. And I'm kind of ashamed to say it, but the third thing that kept me away for the longest time was that I thought it was really hard to use, but it's not nearly as hard to actually use in stores as you would think. So let me give you my experience so far in these first few weeks, even being here in Texas during that whole time when my reseller certificate is from Florida. So even though I'm here, my reseller permit actually still works. I looked online and there's only 10 states that don't accept out-of-state reseller certificate, which I'll show here on the screen. Texas isn't actually one of them. But even outside of that, the first thing that I got approved in was selling at Walmart online. I'm not doing any online arbitrage yet, but I'm planning to do so very soon, and the process at Walmart was so simple. All you have to do is look up walmart.com tax exempt. You'll go ahead and click on the first link that shows up, put in all of your information once again, let them know which states you're more likely going to be sending all your inventory to. I put Florida because that's where my likely prep center is going to be, but you can, I'm sure, update all that information. Then you have to wait another day, I think is all it took. Check back at the same place that you logged in on the first time, and you'll see that you are approved. So now you can make make those purchases tax exempt on Walmart.com while you're doing online arbitrage. In stores, it was actually even easier, and there is a reputation that some stores won't accept your resale certificate, but we might be able to poke a little tiny hole in that in a second. In my van up here in the front, I always keep these papers. These are my tax exempt certificates, my resale permits. And you can see some of these are folded up pretty good because every time that I go into resale, I'll put just 3, 4, 5 of those in my pockets, however many stores I think I'm going to be going to. Because you never know if they're going to say yes, even if in general their policy is no. So far, I've used it at Academy Sports and Outdoors, and I've spent almost $4,000 at them alone in the past couple of weeks, so I've already saved over $300 just there. And you can watch this video to see my insane haul that I just shipped out. It was honestly a super simple process. When I went up to the register, I just let them know, hey, I have a tax exempt certificate, and every time they told me, okay, we'll just do that at the end, not to worry about it. But in Texas, like there are in a bunch of places, there's actually the reseller certificate. That's why it's kind of hard to say reseller permit, reseller certificate interchangeably. And even though on Florida's website they call this the reseller certificate, it might be better to call it the permit. The permit is normally the thing that you and I will have that we bring into the stores, and the certificate is the specific piece of paper that you might have to fill out in a store for every single transaction. I'll show you the one for Texas here on the screen, and essentially, as you can see, you just have to put in who the business is, who you are with the business, what the purpose is of all the purchases, and approximately what you're purchasing. So I just put like apparel, sports, and outdoor goods. But don't worry too much about certificate and permit. It's really not that important, but you might not even need to fill one of those out every time you go. And that was the case for me when I tried this at Marshall's. Pretty much the same thing. I'd been told before that you can actually use this at Marshall's, but right when I got to the register, I was like, hey, do you guys take reseller permits? And they were like, yes, we do. And so after everything was rung up, which is like $600 worth of inventory, she took my information and actually took my license as well as something that showed I was connected to the business, which in that case was that credit card like I'm talking about. I'm not going to show you because I'm not going to show you my credit card number. And she put everything into their system, and they let me know that now I should actually be able to just go into any Marshalls, show them my ID, and get stuff sales tax exempt. I asked if that would work at TJ Maxx as well, and they said that they didn't know, even though TJX owns both those stores as well as Home Goods. Ollie's Bargain Outlet also took it. Pretty simple, end of the transaction. They just put in my number, took off the sales tax. And up until this point with Academy, Marshalls, and Ollie's, I asked at the beginning of the transaction because I was pretty sure that they were going to take it. However, the next store that I went to is notorious for not accepting resale certificates. Ross. I was there a couple days ago, and I was so convinced that they weren't going to take my sales tax certificate that in my Scoutify 2 app, I changed my default sales tax rate from 0% to 8%. You can actually still see it because I haven't changed it back. So they ring me out, the transaction's done, and I'm like, hey, it won't hurt asking. I have these in my pocket. I was like, do you guys take the sales tax permits for reselling? Because I know that they normally don't do it specifically for reselling. And Anthony from a couple days ago, who's way too excited, will take it over from here. That was actually a big surprise. I just walked out of Ross and they took my tax exempt. I was not expecting that. The weird thing about the Ross too is the person that was checking out my items asked their manager, and he's like, oh, do you do stuff for someone? I don't know. It sounded like a name. You work for Amazon? I was like, yeah. And he's like, oh, you work for blah, blah, blah. And apparently they probably have a guy who comes through and like work out a deal with them. But then they let me do it, which is cool. Normally, I've heard Ross doesn't let you do it, so no hurt in asking. Just ask at the end of the transaction. Was not expecting it, but literally saved me 30 bucks. That's a win. Okay, so now you know how to get your certificate, how to use it in-store, how to use it online, why you probably need it. We should really go over some specific things that you should worry about, not necessarily worry, but be aware of with your reseller permit so that you actually don't get in trouble with the state. Say hi to Chris's legs. The first thing is the actual purpose of a reseller permit. It's not just that the state won't get any sales tax, it's to pass the sales tax on to the end consumer because you as the middle person, me as the middle person, don't actually need to pay that sales tax. They're still gonna get their money. They're still gonna get their money. Oh my gosh, you freaking trained! They're still gonna get their money. Okay, let's make some sense of this craziness that I just drew out. Essentially, you have the store where you're gonna buy stuff from, you as the reseller, and then the end customer, and then up here we got the state. Let's just say the product is a blue ball because that's the easiest thing that I'm gonna be able to draw. Nope, not blue ball. Not gonna be a blue ball. Let's just say the product is a pink ball because that's going to be the easiest thing that I'd be able to draw. As the reseller, you have to buy the inventory. So you're going to pay the store and they're going to give you the pink ball. Pretty simple transaction, but if you don't have a reseller certificate, a part of this payment is going to be sales tax. So we're going to add a little itty bitty baby dollar sign, and that is a dollar sign that goes onto this dotted line up to the state. And so that's already been taxed once, and then you're going to take this blue ball and you're going to sell it to the end customer. Pink ball. The pink ball to the customer. Did I say blue customer? I don't know. I'm confused. And the customer is going to pay you, hopefully, more money. So put $2 signs, but they're also going to have to pay some sales tax. So that little one is going to be the sales tax that goes up to the state. This is if you don't have a reseller's permit. So you paid sales tax and then they paid sales tax. And so all three of these dollar signs had sales tax paid on them. The only thing that changes in this scenario is the fact that sales tax only needs to be paid by the end consumer, and as a reseller or a distributor, you're not actually the end consumer of this product. So if you have your sales tax permit, this nice little red thing, you can block this, and the only payment of sales tax will be this last one at the end here, which means that you'll save this money because you were having to give this little bit of sales tax money to the store who was later going to pay it to the state. I hope that makes sense. But this brings us to a pretty big limitation because the end consumer is the one who at least has to pay the sales tax. So what happens if this pink ball never gets bought by the customer? That's where something called use tax comes into play. We talked about this a little bit earlier when we were applying for the reseller permit, but essentially, as the trains were so rudely interrupting me, the government will actually get their money. And so if you buy something with the intention of reselling it, but it doesn't actually end up getting resold, you're still gonna have to pay this little bit of sales tax on it, and so you'll actually have to keep track of that and calculate it for yourself. The good thing is on Amazon, you can either dispose of the inventory, which is essentially giving it away, or liquidate the inventory, which is selling it to another company who will then sell it to the end consumer. But if you get something returned back to you and you don't end up reselling it either on eBay, Mercari, and you use it for yourself because you like it, you are gonna have to record that and pay the use tax on it, which is why I am no longer going to be doing any removal orders, even on items that I want. This also means that you can't buy anything tax exempt that you don't intend to resell. If you're just getting like boxes, supplies, anything else, you can't abuse this, otherwise there would be some serious penalties. I'm not exactly sure what they are, but I assume that there are serious penalties. So only use your reseller permit on things that you are going to resell, and if it doesn't end up getting resold and you use it, you turn into that end customer who has to pay the sales tax, and that's something that you'll have to record, report to the state, and remit the taxes on. Recording and remitting taxes is essentially what you have to do when you get a sales tax permit. Luckily though, some things just change so that you shouldn't have to worry about that much, if at all, if you sell on a third-party marketplace like Amazon, eBay, Mercari, Facebook, any of these other guys. I'm actually not sure about Facebook though. And this brings me to a really important point where we have to talk about what the marketplace facilitator tax is. This is probably something that you've heard about, especially if you've gone onto Inventory Lab, look at your profit and loss. You'll see this on there. It'll normally should match your sales tax that you actually collect. I'm just pulling this from my Inventory Lab now, but we'll be able to see that we have an income for sales tax, $2.25 in this 1 week, and marketplace facilitator tax is a cost of $2.25 because Amazon actually will take that sales tax and remit it to the state. I sell 100% on Amazon and plan to only continue selling on Amazon and liquidating and disposing of my stuff that's there instead of getting it back to sell on eBay. But even on eBay, they have this marketplace facilitator tax. That's because I think any marketplace that sells over $100,000 has to actually collect the sales tax and remit it to the state on behalf of the third-party sellers there. And this used to be a little more complicated, but back in July of 2021, Missouri became the last state to actually have marketplace facilitator laws. So you now shouldn't actually have to worry about this unless you make sales outside of these big marketplaces. I know this all sounds probably pretty complicated and overwhelming, but please get your reseller permit right after this video if you do have a business and you're selling on Amazon or eBay. You'll save so much money, hundreds if not thousands. I've literally saved almost $400 this past week and a half alone because I got this. And that number will only grow as I continue to resell over the next couple months and years.